Time for some laser fretboarding, I think. Howdo, and welcome to this crazy laser build that we're attempting currently. This is a use what you've got / hardware store build for the Jurg's Cup, all in memory of Jurgen Zoller, absolute legend that passed away quite recently. But before I glue some chunks of plywood together to make the neck, I'm going to cut out the fretboard. Now, I've dished around my stock and found this oak plank that is big enough to get a good 4 fretboards out of, which is quite nice. So first things first, we're going to just cut out this knot out of the middle of here, get rid of that. That leaves long enough for a fretboard on that side, long enough for a fretboard on that side, and then we'll have to cut it down the middle because that's like 20mm thick and we only need 10 at the most for a fretboard, right? Now, your bandsaw might be as rubbish as mine, so here's a neat little trick. If you find you can't use your fence because the bandsaw keeps twisting and ballowing, just put a nice straight corner chunk on here, and then you can use that to pivot against. More likely to use that so that this board doesn't twist that way or that way, but then you can also pivot off sideways to run down that line by eye. Okay, so now I have this board flat and level. What I do want to do before taking this onto the laser machine is actually put the radius on it. So I'm just going to put a constant 12-inch radius. I have a radius checkerer and I'm just going to do it with a plane. If you only have a number 4, go ahead and do it with a number 4. Just slight angle to start with, knock the edges off, and then just slowly work your way through, small bits at a time. I happen to have a big one though. You don't get to use this very often, so it's nice when you can. Getting closer. Take your time and you get there. Now, you may recall if you watched the body videos that I got some Aztec vibes from this pattern. So I've ran with a theme for the inlays on here. Let me show you. So you can see on here we've gone for some Aztec-y kind of pictures. These are what's going to be on the fretboard. The fretboard is marked off there, look. So we're going to cut out some holes and then we're going to cut out those inlay sections out of a different wood and see what we end up with. Now, a nice tip for setting your wood up in the right place is to do one center line right through the center of wherever it is you're going to work. That's at 1.5%, tiny amounts, still running at 3000mm a minute. And what that does, it will project the laser light onto the wood, but not actually do anything to the wood. It's not strong enough at 1.5%. You can then see it's putting that line, and you can see it smack down the center. So I know that wood's going to be in the right place for when I really click go and send it to burn all the way through. Let's see if it works. I just love how neat the laser machine is. It's just so cool. Right, so yep, that comes off there. So those interior pieces will come out as well. That's worked rather well. So there's all the extra pieces. We're now going to cut those inlays out into this chunk of maple, so it's not going to be a stark contrast between the maple and the oak, but I think rather classy. So let's line that bit up. So then that should slot into there nicely. So cool! Definitely over-ambitious when shrinking things down to a tiny little level. Too much detail in there. So back to the drawing board with the Lightburn software. Take out some of those internal details and see if we can just make it so we cut out the shape that we actually want. So that's all of the pieces cut out. Now we've just got to put them in. How cool do these look? They're awesome. Now it doesn't look like there's a lot of contrast in the wood. That's because that's got mucky burnt singy bits on. If we see the underside, that's what the contrast's actually going to look like. It's not massive, but it's definitely there. There will be a change in the colour. Quick top tip when you're gluing and you don't want it to stick to the bench underneath. Get a bit of plastic, whether that's just a folded out plastic bag. I like these acrylic sheets because that will just peel off when you've got the glue. So if you're gluing all the way through to the bottom side, do it on top of some plastic, and then once it's set, you'll just be able to peel that plastic off and it's not gluing down to your bench. Those for half an hour or so to let that wood glue settle in, and then we'll come back and flood it with some super glue. Right, we're back. So we can see the plastic is stuck to the back, but does just peel off very nicely. So we can see it's not set all the way through, but it's certainly set enough that they are fixed in. They're not budging. Now I'm not going to go whacking them. So the next step is to fill all of these tiny little slots with a super glue. And I'm going to use the really thin stuff. And there we go, all the glue is now set and hard. So I now need to get this down flush with the boarding. Now, because I still think this is going to be quite delicate, I'm actually going to use a chisel and pare it down. Rather than use a plane or just go at it with a sand block or something like that, I'm going to pare it down very gently with a chisel first. Now, before we give that a final polish, let's talk about these fret slots that the laser's done, because I haven't actually slotted anything yet. What I've used the laser for is to give a ridiculously precise line that then I can go through with a saw. Now, I'm absolutely sure with a lot of time and trial and error, I could get the laser machine to cut exactly the right thickness of kerf for these fret slots, and also to get the correct depth as well, but that would just take too long, and it would then be slightly different for each section of wood of what the power to speed ratio would need to be. So basically I've now got a printout that I can go directly onto the wood using the laser machine. I'm absolutely loving this Creality Falcon2, 22 watts awesomeness. So printed straight out onto the fretboard means I'm not having to mark things off and use a knife and all the rest of it. It's done. I can just go straight on top of that little groove that it's created and just run the saw along there to get exactly the right depth. and with the fretboard effectively finished, the next challenge is to make the neck. And yes, we're going to make a plywood neck, and that is going to be the next episode. Check out this video in the meantime because you'll love it, and I'll see you soon. God bless. Take care.